And we know that. That's just great shit. That's a movie.
Right, and you can't. Can you do that every week?
No, I didn't say you can do it every week, but I'm saying, when the season's over, I need to walk away with more than just the soap opera.
An impactful moment.
Exactly. Now, I don't expect you to do that every week, but at the end of the arc, if you're telling a continuing story, at the end of that fucking season, you need to, bam, drop the mic.
Yeah.
You need to tell me a fucking story, not just ... I
see what you're saying.
And look, while I'm watching it, I'm not asking for that. But the fact that it all just disappears once it's over and it's just sand on the beach.
Right. It's a different thing, though, right? I mean, this is the weirdness. This is the weirdness of the theater experience versus home.
Okay, here's where it's not a different thing. Part of the thing that makes it different is the fact that everyone's watching these continuing stories. Okay, if it were Bonanza, where it's just a setup story, Charles Bronson shows up. He's a half-breed Indian, and he's working at the Ponderosa for a while, and he gets involved in an adventure, and then at the end, it's done. Well, on that show, you have the episodes that are maybe not so good, or the episodes are whatever, they're treading water.
It's not one continual story.
But then you'll have this great episode with Charles Bronson. Yeah. Or do they have a great episode with James Coburn?
They're almost standalone.
That could have been a movie.
Yeah.
They could have expanded that to a movie.
Right. They're standalones instead of just a long, ongoing story.
Well, the difference is that that's episodic.
It's a long, ongoing story that leads to the soap opera.
Well, it's episodic, and television now has become completely serialized.
Yeah.
And so, somebody's going in and they're pitching their show, even a really, really good show like Deadwood. Okay, Deadwood, I know what they probably went in, they pitched, and what they knew that they were going to make was it Wild Bill? The Wild Bill story. And they've got Carradine, and they know that story. And that show is fantastic as long as they're telling that story, which is like 6 to 8 episodes. Mm-hmm. Once he's gone, I don't think they had a plan.
Sure.
That was what they pitched, and it was like they pitched a movie spread out over a number of episodes. But it wasn't even the full season.
Yeah, but by that point in time, they have all the town characters.
Well, they've got everybody, but I would maintain that for the rest of Deadwood, after Carradine's gone, it's just things are happening. Stuff is happening, but I don't remember anything about that show. Other than the town and the various actors that I liked on the show, but really, all they had was those first 6 to 8 episodes. I can't remember exactly what it was.
And the thing about it is, I don't say all this, and the sum up of it all is it's useless. It is very compelling while I'm watching it, but it just doesn't compare to a movie, real story that stays with me for the rest of my life.
Just changes, and I also know that I don't really know that much, and it's different every time anyway. But I really like when you have a loose concept of what you're doing. There's certain parts that aren't going to change much, and the rest you discover. So the first Iron Man, I mean, John and I and the writers, or John and I, we would write. You write a line, I'll write a line, and then we were literally watching the puppies be born as we did it. Frustrating for people who, not Gwyneth, because she can look at a piece of paper and then go, okay, I get it. And she's got it all memorized. She's amazing. But what's for the highest good? Sometimes it's very self-indulgent to come in and hand out new pages or say, oh, I'm not saying that, so feed me that. You know what I mean? You need an environment of respect. But I like discovering things.
How much of acting
See what you can find up there. You got it.
managing those weird relationships that you have with these other people that you're acting with? Like you've made some references to like people changing other people's lines and not being prepared. I got out of acting for that very reason. That was the thing that I took from the world of stand-up comedy, which are just a bunch of crazy people, to actors, which are a bunch of crazy people, but in a different way.
Yep.
And the managing all the different characters and all the different personalities. How hard is that? That seems like that could really get in the way.
Well, yeah, sure
Sam,
it can.
hey,
And it's like a
you still
thumbprint.
there?
Every time you're on a new
God damn it.
project, it's a completely different,
Let's see here.
fingerprint. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes projects seem blessed, and sometimes you could say they're cursed. But again, my Susan
bright side,
Downey Esquire was talking about this yesterday. She goes, it's the only thing you can't overcome as a creative producer on a big movie or anything is, in principle, no matter what happens, you can fix it. Oh, we lost the light. Oh, the thunder. The weather came in. Okay, he got sick. Oh, she's pregnant. Okay, great. Let's change the costume. You can't overcome personalities.
Yeah, the relationships that people have with each other. Do you meet up before you commit to a role? Do you ever say, like, I want to meet Captain America and find out what the fuck that guy's really like? Yeah, like,
By
do
the
you ever-
way, I love that you think I have the authority. Did you cast this guy? All right, let me get a taste of him. I'll tell you if he can stick around.
I'm really interested in doing that, but can we all have a group dinner or something like that?
Yeah.
Try and meet these guys?
My
Find out someone crazy?
MO is always let's mind meld,
all
let's
right?
get together, let's
everything's
work
fine.
weekends, let's spend time
keep going.
together because you can't replace that familiarity. But so you have to try to build it, and sometimes it happens very naturally. Like I adore Chris Evans. I can't even tell you why. He's a Boston guy. He's technically and such a brilliant actor, but he also doesn't take himself seriously. He's flaky, but he's the first guy you would want to have your back if something went down. He's and yet we're different enough where I feel like by being who we are and then both having those characters, we were able to. I think I thought Civil War was a special moment in the arc of the Marvel films about turning one against the other and what it meant, and so sometimes you just get lucky. As a matter of fact, the whole Marvel universe, possibly without exception, just happens to be a really well when you put together something curated group of souls.
Well, it's interesting because people take superhero movies seriously now. Like now, superhero movies are films that happen to be about superheroes. Whereas, for the longest time, superhero movies were bullshit. The TV shows were kind of clunky. They were campy. It was Batman with the silly pants on and Robin. And
I bought it.
Everything was bang, boom, bang. Remember, you'd see the big boom in front of the
Absolutely.
screen?
And yet, who was in the
No
first
good,
Superman?
it's a dead end.
Brandon.
Yes, right.
So there
yeah.
was always a seed of an attempt to legitimize something that was otherwise two-dimensional.
Yeah, Superman was probably the first film that really did that, right? And then Batman.
Yeah.
And then the Batman series. But again, how many goddamn Batmans have there been?
Right. I want to see what Pattinson does.
Oh, that's right. He's going to be Batman now.
I like that guy.
How many Spider-Mans have there been? That's the most, right?
3.
Only 3?
Yeah.
And 3 Hulks, right? At least. 1, 2, 3. Not counting the TV show. Yeah.
Counting the TV show.
4, counting the TV show.
Oh, you're right.
Eric Bana. Yeah. Norton.
Yep.
Mark Ruffalo, who I think he's my favorite.
He was just born for it.
Yeah, it's perfect. You believe him.
Yeah. And again, his whole thing was, "What's my action?" Is like, I got an anger problem.
How do you guys manage this giant CGI thing? Like, how does that work? Like when you're on the set. Like, that seems like one of the weirdest parts about acting in some of those Avenger films
Yeah.
is how much of it is actually
They called
digital.
out to you.
Yeah, you just kind of get used to
I was
it.
worried you got distracted.
I'll
I'm distracted
digress. I did a
now.
movie with
What's that supposed
Richard
to be?
Linklater called A Scanner Darkly.
Yeah.
And it was rotoscoped. So
Great
you-
fucking movie.
I love that movie. Love him. And Keanu and I and Woody and Winona, and it was this cool thing. And we would shoot these scenes, and he would say, "Oh, you can just leave your body mic on the outside because we're just painting the whole thing." So that rotoscoping is a great metaphor for essentially what the Marvel movies became. When sometimes you would even go in, I'm supposed to come in and
Hang on a sec.
throw something, and it was off camera, but everything else was great. Oh, we'll just move your arm later, and you go, wow. So you never want to rest on your laurels and say, But after a certain while, I was like, why am I wearing this football suit? Just put some dots on my shoulders so I can move more freely. And they'd be like, all right. I go, honestly, what are you really using all this stuff I'm wearing for? They go, for reference. I go, great. So I'll wear it for one take, and then I'll take it off, and I'll relax a little bit. But then other people would be like, or Bettany would be like, I'm stuck in this fucking thing, Don. Paint purple. So everybody got to join in on the joys and the miseries of the technical challenge of doing it. And speaking of Ruffalo, by the end, because he's Smart Hulk, he literally make it big wherever he was, and they put a piece of PVC with a big Hulk head up about 5 feet over where his head was, and he was just there in a green suit. So in a tracking suit with like his package out, and he'd be like, let me just at least tie like a little sarong around my, come on guys, whatever, And so I think Mark went about as far out into the ionosphere of CG as you can.
I didn't get the whole Smart Hulk thing. I didn't get how he figured that out. It wasn't really like Hulk is supposed to be Hulk.
Right.
It's supposed to be the alter. It's like one you can control, one is the genius scientist.
Exactly.
And one is the beast.
But after so many times, and again, this is the genius of the people who break and shape stories over there.
There's a path down
Feige
here.
and his team, as they go, oh, he's Hulk, and then he's not Hulk, he's Hulk, it's a big battle, oh, he's so conflicted. What if he could meet himself in the middle? And then what corner have we painted ourselves in by having him meet himself in the middle? Because then you can't, if that doesn't work, you can't go back to the way it was. You've done it. Or you can go back to the way it was. So I just think that the real genius of the Marvel creative team is and the Russo brothers who did the last few Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, is they go, we love writing ourselves into a corner. We love it. Because then it activates all of those, how do we get out of purgatory juices, and then you get the next right idea.
Now, when you guys sit down and when you first receive a script for one of these things, do they consult with you? Do they discuss this with you? Do they just lay it out and say, this is the character arc? How do you feel about this? What do you think?
Yeah, but it's changed over time. I think if you're one of the folks who has their standalone movies, like Scarlett has Black Widow coming out, I think you take a bit of a different tack in how much meaningful. I think the legal phrase for actors and studios is meaningful consultation, not script approval, because then anybody could hold a studio hostage because I don't approve this $30 million that you're trying to spend right now, so your schedule is fine.
When you say I don't approve, I picture a bathrobe and I picture fine china and teacups. That's what I picture. I don't approve, and then just storming off.
I've had my moments too because I'm so passionate about story. But again, after more seat time with the same people and new people coming in and getting a pretty brutal education on what kind of process these movies require, you just start trusting
like we're
more
still on
that
the right
they're
track.
thinking on your behalf. And also, little things are easy to change. Big things become a inconvenience to the higher good. And at what point do you want to pull the air brake on something where the train's, already leaving the station?
Well, I would imagine it would be a fine line that they want the actor to be comfortable with the character, and they want maybe some feedback would be beneficial. But they have a path, a vision that they've created.
Yeah.
And they would like to see you somehow or another at least morph slightly to get on this path.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, after I had my second round of kids with Susan, I became both artistically, I had a bit of a renaissance when I was doing the third Iron Man. And then after that, too, I was like, well, now I'm going to do this Avengers, and there's so many moving parts, and it's so difficult just to get all these schedules to coincide and get everyone together.
Like we're heading down.
I'm not feeling it. So, again, it's that thing. It's sometimes what do they say? Faster alone, further together. Sometimes you can only think about further because you gotta get
That is the
downfield.
second biggest
Other
cistern I've
times
ever
you're
seen.
thinking, hey, this is my moment to run, and I need a little help, and a little approval, and I need a little leeway. But that's any creative endeavor.
I would imagine when you're involved in something that's so epic, when it's
Zach,
actually
come
over,
around
it
this way.
probably almost seems surreal because the production is so massive. There's so many moving pieces. There's so many special effects. So many things that you have to sort of visualize while you're doing it, and then after it's all over, you're done. And what is a like?
What is all this?
What is a big Avengers movie? How many months are you involved in this?
Hey,
Well, I
maybe
mean,
they were planning a massive
It could
theme
be
park?
some part
Pirate
of
land.
18 months to 2 years, depending on how far out you are, and then 4 to 6 months of principal photography, and then additional photography, and then post, and then I always include promotion, from from soup to nuts, I think is the phrase.
Soup to nuts.
Yeah,
How does that work?
That's a Joel Silver phrase. One of my great friends, and probably one of the greatest big movie producers of all time. We did the Sherlocks with him. He did the Matrix series. My missus was running his company for 10 years. Kiss Kiss
Looks
Bang
like a
Bang,
city
which is,
street.
I
Did
think,
they
in
actually
some ways
build all
the
this
best
stuff?
film I've ever
These
done.
guys
Wound up being
don't know
a calling card. It came out and it bombed, but Jon Favreau saw it, and he said this guy could do an action movie. And so that wound up being my calling card into the Marvel universe.
Blueprints. Well, blueprints.
It just changes, and I also know that I don't really know that much, and it's different every time anyway. Then I'm 42. Then it's like, let's try some ones. Then it's 1-2-5s. Then it's 1-5s.
What are
Then
you on
it's
now?
I stopped because I have so many fucking glasses. Some of them are 1s, some of them are 2-5s. It's like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Pirate
But what I
Captain Sigils.
appreciate
All
is
gathered
you know
together.
where you're at by what you're able to retain if you fight for it, and the things that are going no matter what you do. Now, I've heard there's some Israeli guy who's got this app, probably from Laird, got this app, and you do it, and you get your eyesight back. And sometimes it's about, I don't need to try.
These are the 17 most fascinating stories involving aliens ever shared on the Joe Rogan Experience. From leaked UFO files, alien encounters as a result of nuclear weapon deployment, Soviet soldiers being turned to stone during a UFO encounter, and even Joe Rogan asking Elon Musk and President Trump about aliens. These are the craziest alien stories ever told on JRE. This brings us to the first clip, where Joe Rogan shares a chilling story with Post Malone about a Russian encounter with aliens that resulted in the deaths of 23 Soviet soldiers. This is a conversation from episode 2018.
There's a famous story from the Soviet Union that these guys shot at a UFO and it turned them into stone.
Is it true?
Joe Rogan begins reading a CIA file based on KGB materials that details the soldiers' contact with the UFO in Siberia.
According to the KGB materials, a quite low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that was conducting routine training maneuvers. For unknown reasons, somebody unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to Earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with large heads and large black eyes emerged from it. It is stated in the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive that after freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape. That object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the spheres grew much bigger and exploded by flaring up with an extremely bright light. At that very instant, 23 soldiers who had watched the phenomenon turned into stone poles. Yeah, only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade
Lots of
and were
supplies in
less
there.
exposed to
Tools,
luminous
seeds,
explosions survived.
Provisions.
For context,
Probably past
the
this.
UFO incident is said to have taken place in
hell was this
1942,
place?
and while there is no physical evidence of this particular craft, we can't say for certain that it didn't happen. After all, this wouldn't be the first time the government has hidden extraterrestrial discoveries from the public, and also the complete 250-page file has never been released to the public. Joe Rogan reads the concluding section of the CIA document exploring just how advanced alien technology might actually be, and it raises a critical question: if aliens exist, do we truly stand a chance against them?
The CIA representative stated, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is an extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such weapons and technology that go beyond all our assumptions. They can stand up for themselves if attacked. But the thing is, they're saying if the file corresponds to reality, that means there's a
If this is
question.
real, they're tough.
Yeah, they can fuck with you.
The two also discuss the possibility that some of the so-called alien tech discoveries might not be alien at all. Joe wonders if it's just a smokescreen. Could the government be blaming extraterrestrials to cover up their top-secret projects?
I think some of it has to be ours. I think some of it has to be like super advanced drone technology that we don't want everyone knowing about. And it's probably some black ops shit. But I don't think that's possible. I think it's also possible that we've been visited. It just makes sense. It sounds so stupid. That's part of the problem of even talking about it, because it sounds dumb. There's no evidence. So you have to believe in something where there's no evidence of it other than like some blurry photographs. But then when you just think about the size of the universe itself and the fact that we exist, we exist here on this planet. We're real. We know we're real.
To end this segment, Post talks about how many people still believe in the existence of aliens to some degree.
I don't know. It's so weird, man. I don't know. And you're talking about the oh shit moment. I think we've been so like normalized to it, like ET, all this shit, growing up watching this shit, to where it's like, yeah, no shit. Everyone, no matter what the surveys say or anything, everyone thinks there's like something going on.
Yeah.
Symbols on the spheres don't match the ones.
There's a few people that still are very incredulous. Elon, believe it or not, is incredulous. He's famously said, if the aliens are real, they sure are subtle.
They're very subtle. Bigfoot's subtle too.
Up next, James Fox tells the story of a police officer's encounter with aliens while on patrol in New Mexico in 1964. And what makes it even more shocking is the government's swift attempt to silence the officer. This is a conversation from episode number 1976.
One of the best, most well-documented cases in U.S. history took place at Socorro, New Mexico, April 24, 1964, at 5 o'clock with a police officer on duty by the name of Lonnie Zamora. Best case in the U.S.
There we go. What is that? Oh, look. Statues. Pirate captains. There's Bonnie Baldridge. Basra.
Look at that guy's footprints. They got diagrams of this stuff.
Take a look at this picture of the site where Officer Lonnie Zamora
So who
saw a
is this
UFO.
Al-Basra character?
James explains how the Air Force went out of its way to silence Lonnie, ensuring he didn't talk about the problem. And according to James, the experience completely turned Lonnie's life upside down.
Daughter and wife told me. And his wife said,
Grateful Avery brought him along.
Lonnie was never the same after that
Other
case.
guy. Started as a nobody.
So what did Lonnie see?
Lonnie saw two beams at the base of an egg-shaped craft that was landed in Aurora, Socorro, New Mexico, in broad daylight. Lonnie looked out the window of his patrol car. He saw something that caught his eye, and then this object landed. He was actually in hot pursuit at the time. He gave up pursuit to go investigate what was going on, and he sees this object in the Aurora desert on the ground. It's such a well-documented
Both
case.
symbols at once.
And he rolls down his car window, and he's looking out, and he's going, am I looking at like an overturned car? What the hell am I looking at? And then he sees two little figures. He said they were childlike at the base of the craft, and one of them locked eyes with him. And his wife said he was never the same after that. But
How do you describe them? What they
he said they were small, childlike. They're small, and they had white coveralls. This is a close encounter of the third kind.
To end this segment, James dives deeper into Officer Lonnie Zamora's incredible encounter with the UFO. He describes how the craft looked, the mind-blowing speed at which it moves, and one detail that stood out, a mysterious symbol imprinted on its body.
The object was sitting on the ground, not for very long, just a few minutes.
Got it. And here we go again. We got. Let's see.
He was like, what the hell am I looking
Joseph Farrell,
at? And he drove his car
Mays,
around to get a closer
Tariq
look.
Ben Malik,
For a second, while he drove around to get a closer look.
8 out of
Now
12.
he's within 50 feet of this egg thing sitting on the ground. And he gets out of the patrol car. It starts it starts making some weird
Symbols on
noise.
the ring are constantly
A
rotating.
blue flame that comes out, and he said it was not like a
Bin Malik guy.
rocket flame where it would hit
Morris.
the ground and dust everything
yeah,
up,
he is.
but it pierced the ground like a
So
knife through
far from
bone
the
bar.
Barbary Coast.
And then when it got about
Same as
20
us.
feet off the ground, it went completely silent with no flame, no nothing. You can hear it. There was a symbol on the side of the craft. It was in yellow. It was about 3 feet tall, and it was like a V, like two lines and a line on top.
Take a look at the image of the symbol Officer Lonnie saw on the side of the craft. And here's an illustration of what the aliens may have looked like from Officer Lonnie's point of view. Next, Joe Rogan and David Grush discuss the concept that aliens may have created humans. They explore the topic of genetic manipulation and the seeding of life on Earth by extraterrestrial beings. This is a conversation from episode number 2065.
If these things that we're experiencing are the natural progression of what happens when you do seed life on planet, or you do accelerate biological life, you then have some sort of a genetic intervention where you take this thing that it has emerging intelligence and you accelerate England, and that thing will in turn, with all of its desire
That's where we're going.
for innovation and creativity,
No, wait,
and also all of its desire to control resources and have power and have influence, that it will eventually lead to the creation of what we're seeing. That these things are the next stage of this process.
Yeah.
And that we're dealing with
Okay, where to now?
that next stage, but there's another stage that's a million years more advanced than that, that's far superior, that doesn't even have a biological limitation in terms
Missing
of
Avery
physical
statue.
space. That it exists completely in some other undetectable realm.
While Joe doesn't explicitly mention aliens in this specific context, his suggestion of a deliberate act of seeding life or genetic intervention could imply the involvement of a more advanced civilization, possibly alien in nature. However, it's important to note that Joe doesn't provide concrete evidence for this theory. It remains speculative and open to interpretation. As the conversation progressed, Joe addressed the skepticism surrounding advanced extraterrestrial beings crashing their spacecraft. He offers a couple of theories to explain why this could be happening.
When we finish.
I always wonder when there's a crash or when there's a body or when there's a this and that, like, and people saying, well, why, if they're so advanced, why are they crashing? Well, hold on, which version are we looking at? We're not saying there's one thing that's visiting us. If there's one thing that's visiting us and we know where this one thing is, we can say, oh, well, that thing, it deals with a completely different solar system that's not as vulnerable. It doesn't have asteroid clouds. It doesn't have all these different things where it's like, it doesn't have a planet that has super volcanoes. Maybe life evolved in a more stable environment and it allowed it to get to a far greater technological level, but not the ultimate.
Yeah, we might be testing the extent of their adaptability. And like I said, are they crashing by accident?
Right.
Mission failure? Or on purpose?
Joe makes it clear to Grush how little we know about the universe. He highlights the vastness of the universe compared to human life. He also discusses the James Webb Space Telescope's recent discoveries, which have raised questions about the universe's age and timeline.
Big Bang itself. What happened? Something smaller than the head of a pin? For no known reason becomes everything?
Yeah.
It's either that or I just...
And what's the universe expanding into?
Right.
It's like a quantum foam or whatever the heck the latest theory is that's like beyond me.
And then it perhaps
yeah.
just retracts back down to that infinitely small thing and then expands again.
Yeah.
And that this is an endless cycle and that we're just so limited because of our biological limitations or our life and death is such a small little tiny blip. It's so minuscule in terms of just the overall known life of the universe. And then you have the James Webb Telescope that's, you know, there's people that question the actual length of time that occurred between the Big Bang and now, that maybe it might be far longer. And there's people like Brian Keating that say that's not correct. It's just a lack of understanding of what we understand currently about the creation of galaxies.
Up next, Joe Rogan sits with Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell to discuss leaked UFO files. Lazar also reveals how the government, notorious for its leaks, has to outsource the security of certain top-secret projects to private companies. This is a conversation from episode number 1315.
So
There was a document that is circulating right now that is really big. It's going around everywhere. People are asking and
What is
wondering.
this document?
It's called the Wilson Memo, is how you can find it online. So Admiral Wilson meets with this scientist, and they have this discussion, oddly enough, at special projects at EG&G. And if I remember, the document is from 2001. I'm telling everybody right now, it's real. And we'll see. My history is pretty good with like saying if something's real or not, right? So here we go. The document comes out. They meet at EG&G Special Projects. In 1989, they stumble into a problem. This happens. They put the technology away, and then they bring it back out and see if material science has caught up and if they can make any progress. So this document kind of talks about this process.
For context, the Wilson leak, also known as the Admiral Wilson Memo, is a controversial document that allegedly details a conversation between Dr. Eric Davis, an astrophysicist associated with advanced aerospace research, and Admiral Thomas Wilson, a retired US Navy officer. The document surfaced online in 2019 and has become a centerpiece for UFO researchers and enthusiasts.
Said in that document specifically.
It's between a scientist and an admiral that are sitting and they're having a meeting, and they're talking about the search for the UFO subject, the search to get special access program access to all of these different things like reverse engineering programs. So in this document,
No. Your okays are never just okay.
I believe
it usually means
that
the opposite of
this
okay.
document, the person that went was employed by Robert Bigelow, you know, one of the guys that has a couple orbiting satellites and all that stuff.
He's the guy who owns Skinwalker Ranch.
No, he's not. He
Boy,
was
Rafe?
the guy that
Who
owns
the hell else? Okay.
Yeah, he used to own it. There's a new owner, and anyway, the whole point of this, insertion here is just that. And then they 10 years later and start. What is the limiting factor? I think Bob should speak on this, but it's the material.
Joe questions whether... and Lazar confirms it. Lazar further explains how the government keeps many of its top secret projects under wraps by outsourcing the security and control to private companies, and this was confirmed by the leaked document.
But I think what, George has covered is probably that, we try and do what we can, and once we reach a roadblock and we really can't figure it out, it's just put the thing away, wait for science to catch up, and, like decades later,
come on, Nate.
take the project out again and see now where we go.
There's got to be someone who remains informed, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
you've got your scientists like you and
I gotta get off this
you've got
beach.
people that you compartmentalize. You got these people working.
Sam!
There has to be some people.
Sam, can you hear me?
You got security.
Be farther up shore.
Someone's going to be on the outside saying, "Hey, we need to guard
I think a lot of that is private industry, and I think that's how they keep it. Yeah, I think that's how they litter, because the government is just so leaky. I think that's kind of what they're doing.
You just articulated that it isn't controlled privately.
what private industry?
All right.
Some aerospace company.
First things first, get to higher ground. First rule, higher ground. I know where you are.
Sits down with Joe Rogan to discuss the 1996 alien
Sam, come on, answer me!
three girls who claim to have communicated with the women. These efforts by the country's military to silence them. This is a conversation from episode number 1976.
Is there any conventional explanation why they had military barricades set up around that area?
No, they did try to say that the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities. Or something like that. But you talk to the witness.
But why would the military
Yeah,
shut
I know.
down because of the guy
Yeah, and
with
then deformities. And then for the doctors in the hospital, they said just something that's just so ridiculous. It's like, and you talk to the witnesses, and they're just like, "Oh, come on, I'm not gonna, that's laughable at best."
For context, in 1996, town of Varginha, Brazil, known as the Brazilian Roswell, it became famous for claims of an alien encounter. Several people said they saw strange mysterious creature. The story quickly spread around the world and became one of the most talked about UFO cases ever. But the government didn't want the story to gain too much attention. So,
Sam, goddammit!
took
Sam!
and started spreading just as James mentioned earlier.
I mean, these girls, Pig out with Dan. Sam! Broad daylight of this creature. One of the things that doesn't come across in the film.
Sam, are you there?
Looking at it, they're walking through this field. It's up against the cinder block wall. And one of them is looking to it, said, what is that? And it was crouched by the wall. It was weak and feeble. And it looked right at Liliana grabs her younger daughter, her younger sister, who's 14, Valkyria, and hightails it out of it. Katya is 21. She's frozen in her tracks, locked eyes with this creature, and it's communicating with her. It's weak, it's feeble, it's scared, and it's crouched down. Katya's back there. She gets, I don't know, 100 feet down from the back. She leaves her sister, stay here and go next to Katya. She runs back. During that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, but during that moment of contact, what did you feel? Like, put me there. That's what it's about. That was when you locked eyes with this creature. That's when Katya said, help me understand.
Thank God, our supply box.
Feeble and suffering. And it's a very powerful moment.
Of course.
While interviewing the three
Everything's
children,
gone.
Marco exposed that suspicious
It's
men in
good
suits
stuff.
had offered a suitcase full of $100 bills to relocate. Another bizarre thing James was told was the smell that emitted from this creature. He begins to describe to Joe what the witnesses said about the smell.
Right side, can't lose anything else. Besides my life. Talking to myself, that's
The smell,
the first sign.
and the footprint on
Crazy.
the ground. I mean, everybody talks about that stench that was so. They said, you would take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000. That would give you some indication of the level of like how putrid and nasty. It's paralyzing. And it's
Jesus.
the X-rays.
Okay.
Everybody talks about that stench though. It's unbelievable.
Oh, shit.
It gets your nasal cavities and doesn't leave.
Just push through. Just push through.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, they sanitized the hospital.
No, come on. I get over this place.
I heard days and weeks is what I heard from people. She went where the creature was. She said that the stench, even there, after the creature was gone, got in her nasal cavities and she tried to flush it out with water and saline or whatever, and she couldn't get it out of her nasal cavities. It's really crazy. But they all
Keep going, gotta keep going.
you know.
James goes on to share the story of his interaction with the military officer who transported the alien from the scene.
The guy that drove the creature around. I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, but I did. And I'm looking this guy in the eyes. I could be looking at a guy that drove a fucking alien around. You have no idea. When I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got great, you know, coffee. I'm just like, I have no idea. I think an alien species. Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about.
James also talks about his he spent a long time trying to get the doctor to talk. Hearing the story straight from someone who was involved gave James more insight into the days and made the mystery feel even more real.
Think about the doctor who took the x-rays of this thing. Marco Leal. Thank you, Marco. You're the man. Marco Leal found him 8 years ago. And he was like, he confirmed the story. He was still working at Regional Hospital. He goes, I'll never come forward. Marco kept going every year back and forth. Then he retired. And 4 years after he retired, he agreed to meet with us. He wasn't even sure he was going to go on. And I said, look, man, we'll film you from the back. We'll disguise your voice. Showed us photographs of him at the hospital. We know we've been trying to get at him. Excuse me. At the end of the interview, he said, thank you. I feel so much better. I've been shouldering that burden for 26 years.
Joe asks James to give a full breakdown of the doctor's testimony about the alien encounter.
Parvis Magna.
Apparently, the soldiers were so secretive of the operation that even after the doctor performed the X-ray on the alien, he was refused access to the results of the tests.
When you talked to the doctor, what did he describe?
He said that that it was a normal day, January 1996. It was a regional hospital. It was every day, and all of a sudden, all these military trucks and police cars showed up at the hospital. They come in armed, and they got a bag. They got a thing with a black body bag. And he was like, what the hell's going on here? They're like, you're going to be taking some x-rays. And he's like, okay. And they had him inside, and they had armed guards. And I was asking him, like, what was it like? Because when I interview witnesses, I always ask them to project. Sometimes I'll even close my eyes because I'll use their words to recreate. So I'm like living it through them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'll close my eyes, and I'll recreate the scenes in my head with their words, right? It's harder in Portuguese because I'm having to get it translated. But I ask questions like, what was the atmosphere like? Was there any talking? No talking. Super tense atmosphere. Very tense. Armed guards on the outside, armed guards on the inside, military trucks running. Nobody comes, nobody goes. And he said, first time in in the history of my career, I took the x-rays and I couldn't even verify that they were good because he took it immediately. And then they said this event never happened. He said the stench in the hotel, in the hospital was overwhelming. And he goes through the different x-rays that he took. The abdomen, the head, the arms, the legs, the thorax, and it was incredible.
In the final parts of the conversation, James reveals where the soldier that moved the body of the alien first transported it to, how the United States became involved in the operation, and ultimately how their involvement led to the case going cold.
That when he drove it from Humanitas Hospital, it's in the movie, but he drove it from Humanitas Hospital to as a military base, where it spent the night in the truck for one night, and then it went from there to Espesex Campinas. It's like a university. It's where all the intellectual scientific heavyweights reside. And then it was there, I think, under examination, according to the witnesses that we talked to, for a day or two, and that's when the Americans flew in to Campinas. And we have the radar military control officer who came forward last year, actually 2 years ago, when we were there filming for the last time. His name is Marco Feres, F-E-R-E-S. And he came forward for the first time and said, yeah, in January of 1996, this plane came in, USAF, he kept calling it, the United States Air Force, came in, it didn't have the authorization of the Brazilian government. He was like, this thing can't land. And some higher up stepped in the room. This is his testimony. I'm just relaying what he said. He said some higher up came in the room and said, let it land. And it came and it landed at Campinas. And then from Campinas, 2 helicopters, according to them, flew to Varginha, Brazil. Varginha, back to Campinas. Then they loaded something on the airplane and they walked to the United States. And that's where the case goes cold.
Up next, Joe Rogan gets Trump to discuss UFO discoveries made by the government, as well as Trump's opinion on the existence of aliens. This is a conversation from episode number 2219.
I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything.
That should hold.
And they said, we saw things, sir.
Please work, please work!
They were strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. There was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane.
Trump openly discusses his skepticism about the existence of aliens. The two also discuss recent theories suggesting that many of the so-called UFO sightings might not be extraterrestrial at all. They could actually be Chinese drones.
It's not been a big thing for me. I mean, when I looked at what China did to this, they would have never done it with me, where they put the balloon up. And a lot of people thought for a little while that was one of these things. So,
well, that's a lot of the speculation too, that some of these drones that hover over battleships, that these are Chinese drones and that they're not UFOs.
They could be also.
Up next, James Fox and Joe Rogan discuss fascinating theories surrounding alien visits to Earth. They explore the idea that extraterrestrial sightings became more frequent after humans began using nuclear weapons. This is a conversation from episode number 1976.
Am I correct? And this is one of the things I've always heard, is that after the bombs were dropped,
Yes.
that's when the UFO started showing up.
Well, that's when the activity certainly heightened. And, so
Is there any indication that they were directly connected, other than the fact that they just show up?
For context, the first nuclear bomb used in warfare was dropped on August 6, 1945, when the United States dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima, Japan during World War II. Before that moment, UFO sightings were rare, but after 1945, reports of alien sightings started pouring in. Many of these reports are ones we'll go through in this video. Joe and James can't help but wonder if the use of nuclear weapons might have triggered the frequent visit from aliens. James also shares a story about how he came to this conclusion.
I'll tell you how it organically came upon my attention. I was working with this guy, Lance Mungia. He was one of the editors that was working on the phenomenon with me. And we were doing this archive from this guy named David Marler's got this incredible archive of UFO material dating right back to the 40s, all the way to modern day. Newspaper headlines, audio recordings, statements, broadcast. Unbelievable. The biggest archive you could spend the rest of your life in there. So he gave me a bunch of stuff that was archive interviews of primarily people at White Sands, Holloman Air Force Base, different areas in Texas. And I was just putting it in. It's kind of like a little montage in the piece of just giving the illustration that these things are going on kind of all over. And my buddy goes, "Hey, man, let's put a map on the wall and put pins in the map for all these different locations." So I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, let's do that." So we put a map on the wall in the edit room when we were doing the phenomenon. And we were putting pins in, and we looked at each other after like a day or two. We were like,
in those boots?
Proximity to Trinity site. Wow. Even Socorro, White Sands, this place in Texas. Like, that's kind of unusual. We're kind of scratching our heads. Do you think there's a correlation?
For context, James and Lance noticed something strange while digging through the archives. Many of the recent alien sightings they reviewed happened near the Trinity site. Trinity is the code name for the first ever nuclear weapon test, conducted on July 16, 1945, in the New Mexico desert. Less than a month later, it was used to bomb Hiroshima. Do you see how this all adds up? The US starts to use nuclear weapons, and suddenly aliens start to show up more often. James goes on to describe his meeting with the late Senator, Harry Reid. He explains how this conversation reinforced his theory.
And then I met with Senator Harry Reid. Thank you, George Knapp, for helping make that happen. Former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who started the ATIP program. And during the interview, I didn't think about asking him this, but at the end, and he had like, I'll have 47 minutes with you, and then I got to go. And he's got all the security guards and big guys with thick earpieces looking at me. And I said, "Well, sir, would you mind if we could do a quick walk and talk?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll give you 45 seconds. So I figured, well, while I'm walking with Senator Reid, I'm going to ask him what was one of the more astonishing aspects of the phenomenon that they uncovered during this Pentagon UFO program. And right away, without hesitation, he goes, "The fact that there are incursions over our nuclear missile facilities, nuclear armed facilities, that is of grave concern." That was a shocking aspect of the phenomenon. And I thought back to that map that we'd done in the edit room.
Speaking of incursions at nuclear facilities, in 1967, multiple witnesses at Malmstrom Air Force Base reported UFOs hovering over the nuclear facility. And during the event, 10 nuclear missiles suddenly became non-operational. And to this day, there has been no clear explanation as to how this happened. In 1968, at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, a personnel observed a UFO near the base with reports of strange behaviors in missile systems and radar interference.
I contacted this guy named Robert Hastings, the guy who wrote the book, The Connection Between UFOs and Nukes.
What is the book?
His name is Robert Hastings, UFOs and Nukes, I think. But in any case, I contacted him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not doing too well. I got this heart condition. I tell you what, you can have all my archives, all the videos that I shot." So I went through all of them, and I put together just like a 5 or 10 minute segment in the phenomenon, that connection. And you got all these like missile control launch officers and people at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Minot Air Force Base, talking about these incredible incursions. And keep in mind, you're talking about people that we entrusted with the securement and deployment of nuclear weapons. Okay? You guys are lying? When they've got nuclear weapons at their disposal? And it's
James reveals that all the aliens who witnessed these nuclear facility incursions are now testifying directly to Sean Kirkpatrick, the director of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO.
I interviewed this guy, Robert Sellers. Robert Salas was Lieutenant Robert Salas, launch control officer of the United States Air Force, has this incredible encounter in Maelstrom. His people do, and UFO sighted, a disc, and then his nuke starts shutting down. He said to me, "I'll never forget this." There's no days, the way I see it, it's kind of like taking hatches out of the hands of
That makes sense.
There's hundreds of testimonies from these guys. They're testifying now to this
Up next, Joe is met with an interesting story from Bizarre about his experience in a UFO back when he worked at Area 51.
So take me back to first day. Accept the job.
Yeah, it's I didn't really get to see it. It was essentially just paperwork. That's when I flew into Area 51. I lived and passenger plane from Las Vegas through security clearances to and it was like 2 or 3 hours of just solid paperwork, and that was really an uneventful first day.
In 1984, Bizarre was trying to make his way back into the scientific world. So he started sending out resumes. One of them landed in the hands of Ed Teller, the renowned physicist and chemical engineer. Teller decided to give Bob a reference to EG&G, a defense contractor heavily involved in weapons research and development during the Cold War. After a few interviews, Bob finally got a job offer, but he was given almost zero details about the job. He was simply told he was going to work on some test sites. It wasn't until he arrived at the site that he realized that he had just gotten hired to work at
I can't tell you what day that occurred on. Because the day well, there's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain, and normally we would have taken a bus and gone around the front. This guy we walked by it, a flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains what this is fucking hilarious.
Bob
And Barry was very interested. Show me different things. A demonstration of the reactor working. Oh shit! So, this is really something different.
Joe presses Bob. Accusations of fabricating stories. Reputations of conspiracy. Crystal clear understanding of Bob's claim.
What was it? What was it? What was it about this reactor that made you think it didn't exist technologically?
Well, it was the. I actually have to back up because there were some brief before that. You know, certainly gave me the impression that this was going to be a weird job, but this was the first hands-on thing. This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of a basketball, on a metal plate, and when it was running, it produced a gravitational field of its own. Now, this is something that we can't do. We can't produce any gravity. The only way we get gravity is from large quantities of mass. But there's no machine we can have that turns on that makes gravity. Like, you can turn on an electromagnet and it makes a magnetic field. We can't make a gravity gravitational field. Anyway, this device was producing that, and Barry said, almost like he was bragging, "Go ahead, try and touch the sphere," and I couldn't. It pushed my hands away, just like two like poles of a magnet. So that was.
So like when you take two magnets and try to press them together and they
Yeah, you
push
have
against
that-
each other.
Yeah, that kind of cushion feeling, but you can't get them together. The closer you put them, the more they push.
Okay.
Bob, this experience lined up perfectly with everything he had read during the briefing on the first day of the job. The mission for the project was to reverse engineer the alien craft and figure out how to replicate its technology using materials we have here on Earth. According to Bob, there were multiple alien crafts being worked on, and he says he got the chance to look inside one of them.
I did get a chance to look inside the craft on only one occasion, and this was important because where the reactor sat might have been critical to how it operated, since everything operates without any interconnection, so the placement of components might be critical. So they allowed me to go inside and look at it.
So you're going into this craft, and what are you thinking when you're inside of it? Like, what are you seeing?
It's a very ominous feeling because there are no, first of all, everything is one color. It's like a dark pewter color, and there are no right angles anywhere. It's as if somebody took, I've said this before, somebody took a model and fashioned it out of wax and then heated it just for a short time so everything melted. Everything looks like it's fused together. Everything has a radius of curvature where two items meet. It's a really
Burns' crew had about as much luck as me with this
Bob
treasure.
describes his experience stepping into a UFO. He tells Joe every detail, from its massive size to its otherworldly design. He vividly recalls the moment, describing how surreal it felt to stand inside an alien spacecraft clearly designed for beings half his size.
So you get inside this thing, and it's designed for something that's much smaller than a human being.
Yeah, you can't really stand up till you get to the very center of it.
And how
but
tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And what do you think this was designed for?
I'd say something close to half my height.
Wow. So these little 3-foot tallish creatures.
Yeah, and the seats were small too. I mean, obviously it was made, for something small. But there is no, there's nothing else in there. There's just seats, the reactor, and some of the subcomponents. There's no control panels. There's no bathroom. There's no decorative components or artwork or anything that you would recognize or trim. I mean, it's just a very bare bones thing.
You're not seeing any screens?
Well, there are archways around it that are part of the superstructure, and one of the archways may become transparent.
No.
Call that a screen, more or less.
So through that archway, it would maintain the solidity, the solid, whatever metal it was.
Yeah.
That you could
Yeah,
see.
it just became transparent. Yes. I saw that happen once or twice before I left.
I nearly shot your head off.
UFOs, detailing how the craft completely defied some of the laws of physics as we understand them.
Nothing I can't
Watching
walk
these
away from.
tests in action shook some of his core
Good to
beliefs
see you're alive,
about
little
how
brother.
the universe works.
But what did you do while you
got
were
a treasure
there?
to find.
If you're looking at this object, this
What are we
reactor,
doing?
and you can't figure out
What do you mean?
what it is or how it
I mean,
works,
our
other than the
supplies
fact
are at the
that
bottom
what's
of the
in this
Indian Ocean.
element that we don't even know about.
So
For
we
sure.
go
I mean, the thing
steal
was
some
to-
from Nadine's army.
What
Yeah,
you
and there's
do,
that.
We're
going up against an army.
with anything. If you're
We've been
trying to
holding our own
analyze
so
it, all
far
you can
while
do is
being
perform
marooned in
tests.
the middle of nowhere.
And all we did is try and come up
We
with
had an
every
escape
kind of
plan.
test we possibly could. I mean, we tested. It violated a lot
Crazy
of what we
suggestion.
thought was impossible.
Let's go
to
down
violate.
there and at
I mean,
least secure one of Rafe's
the
boats.
first laws of thermodynamics. I mean,
Boats.
essentially,
Wait.
any machine, any
Wanna know what
device
we're
that
doing here?
operates always
We are
makes
buying
extra
my
heat.
life back.
Nothing works at 100%
Hey, we're going to
efficient.
do that by
Even
stepping into
the
that
headphones
jungle
you're wearing,
and finding
anything
the
that takes
battalion.
power,
You
some of that
even
power is
seen
going to
any
be
signs
converted
of
to
massive
heat,
pirate
and it's
colony?
just wasted.
'Cause I sure the hell
This
have.
didn't. I
A
mean,
little
we
late to
looked
start
at-
developing
back then
doubts,
we
don't you
had
think? But can we
infrared
at least
cameras. They're
acknowledge the
different today,
chance
but
that
back then
maybe
you had to
Avery's
pour liquid
idea for
nitrogen
secret pirate
into
utopia
the
didn't
camera
pan out?
to cool the
And
sensor
maybe
down.
we're just
And,
swept up in this
and get these
fantasy
infrared images
when
you've
instead
seen.
we should be looking for
But
a real way to
it
save
never
it.
got, no matter what the load was on the reactor,
Scour
it
this
never got
island
above
inch by
the
inch if
ambient
I have to
temperature,
until I
which is
find that treasure.
impossible. I mean,
If you're
pulling out
confused
huge amounts of
about
power,
what you're doing here.
and nothing ever gets warm.
And you can go home.
To end this segment, Lazar shares with Joe how the government was
I can go
conducting
home?
test flights with the alien
Are you
craft.
kidding me?
Keep in mind, these UFOs.
Do you have any idea what I put on the line to get you here?
About what
Naturally,
I put
Joe
on the
couldn't
line.
help but ask how they
Okay?
were
The
able
last
to fly them.
15 years of my
This has
life.
nothing to do with that.
It has everything to do with that.
They were doing some tests where they were having these things fly around in the sky, and this is what gets us deeper into your story.
Right. I was out there for one test. Right. In fact, I was in with Barry in the lab, and Dennis came in and said, "We're about to run a test. Why don't you guys come out?" Or I think he said, "Barry,
Still
why
wanna
don't
go home?
you come out here and bring Bob with you?"
Let's just see what else we
We
can
went
find.
out there, and the craft was already outside the hangar and was just preparing to lift off. Now, they were in communication with somebody in the craft.
So there's a person in the
Was
craft.
it? Yeah, there was certainly a person in the
Just hope the rest of it isn't buried under centuries of dirt and rock.
My best guess.
And this is the same specific craft.
I touched and worked on. It quietly lifted off the ground, which was incredibly impressive to see.
Up here.
Quietly or silently?
What's well, quietly because it
Well, no one's home.
Some sort of a noise?
it produced a little corona discharge from the bottom. A corona discharge is kind of a high voltage brush, little bluish glow discharge. As it was lifting off the ground, you kind of hear a slight hiss sound. Now, as soon as it cleared the ground by about 5 or 10 feet, maybe even less than that, the hissing stopped and the blue
Sam,
glow
this way.
disappeared. So it lifted off quietly and then it hovered silently. I want to be specific.
Yeah, that's
Up next, Joe Rogan dives into Bob Lazar's controversial story with filmmaker James Fox. Together, they unpack the details, debating whether or not Lazar's claims hold any weight. This is a conversation from episode 1976.
But I mean, you got one person's account, and it's fascinating. And I believe that Lazar believes what he's saying. But I've talked to George Knapp about this, and George said the same thing. I said, maybe, I mean, just maybe. And I'm not out here attacking Lazar or nobody else. I'm just saying, maybe he was used as a disinformation plant that seeds some real information and some bogus information, just to kind of test the waters and the reaction of the public. I don't know.
Most certainly that's possible.
Yeah, I really,
Most certainly that's possible.
not my domain.
It's also, I would imagine, if you're going to give people access to classified information like that, you'd be very careful, and you would probably add in
Honest
some
to
stuff
God
that's
masonry
not
in here.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether or not, as long as
Your
like
average
they
ship
have
might
a
have
bunch of stuff that's
great
absolutely
carpenters
provable
among them,
nonsense
coopers.
on top of the stuff that's probably real, then they
Going
get
to stretch
discredited.
out again.
Joe makes a good
Yeah, you
point.
said it.
The government is known to cleverly protect top secrets information by feeding each
there's a way out.
scientist a slightly
Nah,
different version
it's
of
too
the
high,
same
even
story.
for a boost.
Sometimes it's the truth, but with a carefully placed
Place I
lie
love
in
staying
between.
on.
That way, if the information ever gets leaked, they can easily trace the source.
Look, there's a lot of weird stuff about the Bob Lazar story. A lot of weird stuff about it, and the one that sticks in my mind.
Great, I got an
know this
idea.
Probably shouldn't because it's
Here we go.
possible to do. Is that it's
Up! We're in business.
now that's possible to develop a narrative, and if you're disciplined, he's
gonna wanna
obviously
see
very
this.
intelligent. You can just like craft the longest con the world has ever known and make no money from it and turn your life upside down. And have the feds search your property, which they did.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Video. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
What do you
If
see?
they thought that he really was in possession of element
Houses,
115, and that there
Street.
really is
Clearly a
a
commercial
stable
district of some kind.
version
Yes.
of this element that we discovered in a particle collider, or we
Just want to hear me say
accurately
it, don't you? Really want to hear you say
and
it.
then proved it to be real in a particle collider. But that
Libertalia.
wasn't until like the 2000s.
Up next, Joe
Libertalia.
Rogan and Theo Von dive into a lighthearted
legendary
conversation
pirate Utah
about the
discovered
possibility of
after
billionaires
300
being aliens.
years.
The ultra-wealthy
By
seem
one
to
Samuel
operate on a
Drake.
completely different level, working endlessly
And-
without much
and
need for
his
rest or sleep.
younger,
It's a playful
slightly less
exchange that
charming
might make you
brother who
rethink what
happened
makes
to
someone
be
truly
off the
human.
right. You know, I
This
always
is a
think you'd make
conversation
something
from
of yourself.
episode number 1847.
Just so you know, it's
Dude,
not my
isn't
first
it weird
lost
how
city.
guys, like if you look at some of these guys, like Elon Musk,
Enjoy the moment.
Facebook, what's his name, Mark?
Zuckerberg.
Yeah. And then the other guy, they look
we
like
must
aliens,
not.
bro. Their body's white. they're really
that building right over there.
All day.
The one with the massive
Like, but you look at Elon when he was out on that
Said
yacht.
we go see what it was
Oh,
guarding.
yeah.
That motherfucker looks like he hasn't seen the sunlight in years. Years. Like his body has not been exposed to sun. Like you can't fake that.
Goddamn
That
shit,
whiteness.
Nathan.
That's a
your
wild
idea of
whiteness.
speechless?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's almost an extraterrestrial whiteness. It's the
Yeah.
whiteness you see when you see an alien.
It's paper.
Just look at the image of Elon's pale skin on the yacht. It really makes you wonder when he last spent any time in the sun. The two then discuss how billionaires seem almost alien in their ability to detach from emotions. Joe points out how these high net worth individuals juggle multiple massive projects at once, something that feels superhuman. Take Elon, for example. He built Tesla, Neuralink, and SpaceX
Sam, check it out.
simultaneously. Joe even
Blacksmith
jokes that you'd have to be an alien to pull off something like that all at once. Or what do you think?
A lot of autism, you see these guys who will do the
Get some cutlasses
calculations
here.
and they'll be able to, figure things out. They're almost a little bit more of a computer than a person, or they're somewhere in the middle.
Like they're more advanced than us.
Yeah,
They're
you dirty dog.
emotions that hold people back.
that's what they're doing.
Nice.
And so when you get that,
I was doing the.
and
I
you
know.
get some of these guys that are like
I was
that,
doing a thing.
I think that's kind of the next evolution, and that's closer really to aliens, man.
Yeah.
When you see aliens, they're not like, oh fuck, man,
Right.
been a long day.
Scratching their balls.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing that
They're
I've thought
doing
of
business,
too,
man.
is that maybe that's like the next level of evolution, is that like there's more of a separation between emotional anxiety and all the thing, and instead concentrating on calculations and numbers and accomplishments. I mean, just think about all the different things that Elon does simultaneously. That's what's wild. Like, that doesn't seem like a normal human being would have the capacity to develop rockets while he's developing electric cars, while he's developing Neuralink, which is like a human computer brain interface, while he's developing the Boring Company, where he's trying to solve traffic problems.
Speaking of Elon being an alien, here's the ironic twist. The billionaire doesn't even believe they exist. Up next, Joe and Elon dive into theories about why aliens likely aren't real. Elon believes there is no solid photographic evidence, and he makes some other compelling arguments to back up his disbelief. This is a conversation from episode number 1609.
You say the great filter.
Cheers.
What did you mean by that?
Well, so there's something called like the Fermi paradox of like where are the aliens?
Yeah.
So where are the aliens? I think it was Carl Sagan that said like if there either are a lot of aliens or none, and they're equally terrifying.
Elon makes a strong case,
you throw your
pointing out
lot in
that
with
if
these
aliens are real, there
infamous
should be at
outlaws.
least one clear, undeniable photo as proof. The two also discuss how ridiculously easy it is to manipulate images in
Blow it
today's
off.
digital age.
And I
Some
wouldn't be clear, like,
refuge.
to the best of my knowledge,
Enjoy a little
there
grog.
is no evidence for alien life.
Far
on
worse
Earth.
fates.
There's no
I
evidence.
guess.
There's no evidence for alien life.
Except you
There's
have
no
to see
direct
Avery
evidence
statue every day.
for alien. And if somebody says, "Oh, what about this alien for?"
Black holes are one of the most mind-boggling aspects of space. For a start, they aren't actually objects. They
ever
are the
wonder,
result
like,
of the extreme
choices?
warping of space-time.
How we
And
might
because
end
of this warping, some really weird
Maybe
stuff
like you
starts
taking
to
the
go
magic
on
show
around
on the road.
that will change your perspective.
No, that was
of the way
that was an
the
option.
operates.
I was good. It's not a viable option. You know what? You're just jealous. You always were.
I won't believe it was true were it not for the solid math that back up their existence and properties.
but I mean,
and the increasing
what would our
evidence
lives have
that
been
math
like
is
if we
correct
hadn't started
through observations
chasing
in our
these
own universe.
people who've been dead for hundreds of years?
I'm Alex McColgan, and you're watching Astro.
would
And in
resemble
this video, we will be exploring the
normal
unexplorable. Join me on this journey as we attempt to understand the weird science of how a
Guys,
black hole forms.
Everybody gathered around the table for Thanksgiving,
Explore what might
exchanging all the
actually
baby
allow us to
photos,
escape from the most
something like that.
inescapable prisons in existence.
No,
I
thank
hope
you.
by the end of this
Not for
video
me.
to have earned your like and subscription.
I like the hand we've been dealt.
Yeah, heard that before.
Black holes come in a variety of sizes. The
We're fortunate,
smallest
man.
observed black hole
This is
is around
fortunate.
3.8 solar
You know,
masses.
of course, I've been locked up for the last 15 years, so it's all relative, I suppose.
Black holes that have been
All right,
in
well, I'll give you that.
existence
This is
since almost
much
the
better than
start of
prison.
the universe. Black holes weighing billions of solar masses. These behemoths are not only massive,
My mug's run
also
dry.
huge.
Yeah, I was about to say, service here is
The
lousy.
entire solar system within the diameter of their event horizon. Black holes being created today are the final stage in the life cycles of particularly massive stars. When such a star is born, it is essentially balancing under the weight of two forces. The first is gravity, pushing its mass towards its center. Down in the depths of the star, hydrogen atoms are crushed against other hydrogen atoms with such force that they combine to form a denser element,
Horse
helium.
bones. They're still
This new
tied
atomic
up.
structure actually needs less
They were
energy than
abandoned.
it did when it was two individual
Don't know.
separate hydrogen atoms.
Maybe
so the extra
people left in a
energy
hurry.
left over gets
Or they
released.
were taken away.
This released energy
Something
is
isn't
the
kosher here.
second force. It radiates back out from the center of the star as heat and light, counteracting the force of gravity pushing in. In this state, the star
What do you
will
think
remain
happened?
relatively stable until such a time as the reaction begins to stop as it runs out of its
What do you
hydrogen
mean?
fuel.
You know, all good things must
If the
come to
star
an end,
is
right?
massive enough,
I mean, I
once
joke
the
about
hydrogen
cursed
begins to
pirate
run low,
treasure, but
the
after
star
hearing
will
all your
combine
stories.
the newly formed helium,
Well, the simplest
dense
explanation is
materials
usually the correct
like carbon, neon, and
usually.
eventually oxygen and silicon. But then it begins fusing iron. The issue with iron is that it doesn't save any energy in its new form, so has no spare energy to release. It just sits in the core of the star, growing larger. With no energy pushing back against gravity, very quickly the scale tips. The energy of this collapse is astounding, but the force is dependent on the original mass of the star. Like a hammer striking on an anvil, the mass of the star rushes down to meet the core with such force that the rebound of that blow is what we call a supernova. Matter and energy are blasted out across the universe from the crackback in one of the largest explosions possible, which produces elements even heavier than iron, all the way up to uranium. And what is left of the star? Well, it depends. If the mass of the star, and thus the force of the blow, was too low, what remains is a neutron star, a small ball of matter at most around 25 kilometers in diameter, and yet so densely packed with mass that it equals 1,000,000 Earths. But if the mass, and thus force, was big enough, physics as we know it breaks down, and we are left with a black hole. When you see an image of a black hole, the black sphere you are looking at is not actually.
Hey, Sam, check it out.
Itself.
It's like a pirate code of conduct.
The black hole's true form is probably even smaller and denser than a neutron star. In fact, it is likely infinitely small and infinitely dense. A singularity
place was
emitting
not having
forces that walk
Even
time
pirate
and
ships
space
had their own
itself.
rules.
However, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because of something called the event horizon. All objects with mass exert gravity. We've known this since the days of Newton. However, when Einstein came along in 1915 with his theory of general relativity, a contemporary of his called Karl Schwarzschild reasoned from it that there could exist objects that were so massive they could create enough gravity that light itself could not escape. And if even massless light photons couldn't get out, nothing could. When you look at a picture of a black hole, you are not seeing the black hole itself. You are seeing the event horizon around it, the demarcation line where gravity has become so powerful that light can no longer leave. There is nothing but darkness. Now, its effect on space is one thing, but black holes also impact another aspect of the universe, time itself. You see, according to Einstein, space and time are inseparably connected, and mass
This letter's
warps
still
space-time.
legible.
With the singularity's infinite point of mass, it stretches space-time so much that the event horizon also marks the point where time stops. Within the event horizon, space and time basically cease to exist, a place where there is no where or when. This produces an interesting phenomenon to an outside observer watching matter fall into a black hole. From their perspective, as matter approaches the black hole, it will slow down until just before the event horizon, where it will stop altogether. You won't ever see it cross the event horizon. There will be no satisfying absorption. Instead, the matter will gradually dim until you can't see it anymore. When first theorized, astronomers and physicists were uncertain if black holes were actually real. It was only 40 years later that the first evidence of a black hole was recorded. In 1964, using newly developed X-ray satellites, scientists noticed an object in the constellation Cygnus that seemed to be emitting a large amount of X-rays. Strangely enough, though, scientists could not see the object itself. It surprised them because if it was a star, it ought to emit visible light as well as X-ray radiation. Scientists called this object Cygnus X1. In 1970, as telescopes advanced, they noticed that whatever Cygnus X1 was, it had formed a binary orbit with a star in its system, and this helped scientists calculate its mass. They discovered that this invisible object was 15 times more massive than the Sun. As the densest neutron star had an upper limit of 3 times the mass of the Sun, scientists realized that this was most likely the first ever discovered black hole. Since then, we have discovered many black holes. Massive ones seem to exist at the center of galaxies, and we've even managed to take photos of some, dark blots against a swirling ring of matter that surround them and fall into them, their accretion disk. This is how black holes can still be detected with X-rays. While black holes can't emit visible electromagnetic radiation themselves, the X-rays that come from them actually originate from the accretion disks, where infalling matter gets heated to millions of degrees Celsius through intense friction. Black holes with no infalling matter are basically invisible, with no bright accretion disk to spot. Exploring black holes is still a developing field in physics, and there is still much to learn.
What's this symbol?
From what we
I
have
saw a
learned
few
so
of them when
far,
I was coming to find you.
if a black
Who's
hole
marking
could
these
ever
places?
stop being a black hole.
Is that another sigil?
Will it grow
No,
forever
not
until
that I
there is
know
no
of.
matter
Maybe
or
invaders?
radiation left in the
Then I'm sure
universe?
these guys had plenty of enemies out there.
Good point.
However, in 1974, in his paper entitled Black Hole Explosions, physicist Stephen Hawking postulated that there was actually a way that energy, and thus mass,
Even a pirate utopia needs a place to lock up
to
riffraff.
understand why, we have to
Can you
get
imagine
into
who
some
pirates put in
extremely
prison?
weird theory.
That's a little hypocritical,
We
don't you
need to
think?
examine
Pirates
some
having a
principles
jail.
of
Well, I guess
mechanics.
every group has its assholes.
Let me ask you a difficult question. What is nothing? Imagine for a second a patch of space with nothing inside it. There's no atoms or radiation passing through it. As near as can be seen, nothing exists within it. And yet, is there really, truly nothing there? Something fundamental exists here, and we can tell that this is the case when a beam of light travels through it. If you are familiar with the properties of light, you will know that light is actually waves of electrical and magnetic charge that are constantly propagating with each other forwards in a straight line. However, let's take a look at that word wave. A wave in the sea is the propagation of energy moving through the water. If you were to look at an individual particle of water, it's not
This way,
really
follow
going
me.
anywhere except in a circle. And yet, as it passes energy to the atoms next to it, energy travels towards the shore in a constant motion that goes all the way to the beach. Similarly, a sound
tunnel
wave
through
moves by passing energy between air particles, with each particle only moving a tiny
Hey, Sam, come here. This looks promising.
Right behind But in our vacuum of
Looks like
space,
a hideout of
where
some
there is
kind.
nothing in it, where our photon of light is traveling in waves, have you ever stopped
Look at this.
to wonder what exactly is
Looks like the layout of the commercial district.
This hints at a fundamental something that
Oh,
exists.
there's our treasury right there. See? There's the tower.
What were these guys up to?
Itself. Quantum physicists call this something a quantum field. Quantum fields are tough to wrap your head around, but they are inescapably important when it comes to
You
understanding.
know, if that symbol was from an invading force, we wouldn't have found it in an underground hideout.
Exploding black holes
Maybe
tied
there was
together.
trouble in paradise.
Going back to
Secret
Hawking's
society
paper,
or
Hawking
rebels.
hypothesized
All
that
definite
black holes release
possibilities.
energy slowly over time in initially tiny quantities. As energy and mass were two expressions of the same thing according to Einstein's famous E equals mc squared equation. This inevitably resulted in a reduction in the black hole's mass. However, as the black hole shrinks, the rate of energy
That's our way
release
out of
would
here.
speed up, getting faster and faster until
see some
in the
light
very
down
last
below.
moments of the black hole's life, it would release a burst of energy that was truly before vanishing entirely. But how can this be true? It is well known that an event horizon is inescapable. So how could
I see
we
some
be
light down below.
and actually cause such a black hole explosion? The answer is a strange one.
Hey!
It relies on unintuitive ideas of
Found more of the colony.
that completely go against our day-to-day experience. But if it's true, I hope you're prepared for the universe to be a whole lot stranger than you first thought. But to begin understanding Hawking's theory, we need to understand the idea.
I think they've seen us yet. Just keep it that way.
Remember,
Hey,
light moves
keep your head
like a
down.
wave, just like the same thing. Empty patch of space, which reveals that there must be something existing even in the nothing, or else light wouldn't be able to wave it. Scientists call this fundamental fabric of reality a quantum field. In fact, they believe that there are several quantum fields, all overlapping each other, and all covering every single patch of the universe, be it past, present, or future. Quantum field defines a particular type of something. One field might define all of the electrons in existence, while another may define quarks that make up an atom. Where nothing can be found, the quantum field is relatively quiet. Think of it like a guitar string that hasn't been strummed, or a graph that has a zero value. But wherever space, mass, or energy can be found, the quantum field is resonating at that point. And when the resonance reaches a certain threshold or quantity, the universe expresses that as, say, an electron or a photon. It's important to note that in this theory, the resonance is not just reacting to a piece of matter, it is the matter. An electron is nothing more than a resonating section of the quantum field that defines electrons. This is true for all energy and all matter too. According to Einstein, energy and matter are two sides of the same coin after all. All the universe you see around you is resonating quantum fields and nothing more. In this way, the theory portrays all of the universe as a song being played on these fields, which I think is quite a beautiful image. But why does this matter? Why is it important to define the universe in this way? Well, due to an idea of quantum physics called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, sometimes the strings of the universe start strumming themselves. Without going too deeply into this aspect of quantum physics, essentially, when we're looking at really tiny objects, it becomes impossible to know too much about it. The location and the direction of travel of an electron, for instance. Because it is so small, as soon as you try to... Hey! But when you shot, little brother. You might think this can't possibly be a thing. Matter doesn't surely notice this. However, get down! Between them, this limited the number of such. Outside of the plates, this meant that there was a difference in pressure exerted.
I think that's all of them. Grab any ammo you can. That won't be the last of them.
Pressure by the number of virtual particles on the outside of the plate.
No and Rafe?
Push the two
Both.
plates together. And in the test, this proved to be the case.
Crap, more shoreliners.
You might think that particles appearing out of nowhere seems to defy the
About time we had a
laws of
proper payday.
matter. You would be right. So, to balance the scales, whenever a virtual particle appears, a second particle also pops into existence to pair up with the first particle. But while one of the particles is matter, the other is antimatter.
Fun.
See any more? Or are we
That's a
clear?
level of
Think we're
weirdness
clear?
that we don't need
You alright?
to hear.
Just a little winded.
The important part is that the quantum fields are constantly resonating and constantly cancelling each other out. This is why, for the most part, empty space is empty. However, what would happen if you stopped only some of those fields resonating? And that's where black holes come in. Black holes act a bit like putting your thumb on a guitar string of the universe. Due to their event horizons, certain resonances in the quantum fields are dampened down, while others are not. Hawking imagines sketching a line through time, in a patch of space where a black hole was born. He imagined a quantum field that resonated along time, stretching from before the existence of the black hole into the future after it. Before the birth of a black hole, all is normal. Quantum fields are all
Come on,
resonating
Sam!
freely.
That thing steady?
each other out.
Steady as anything else around here.
The
Oh,
emergence of the
okay,
black
so
hole's
no.
event horizon changed the curvature of space.
All right.
And
Here I
outside
come.
it, Hawking realized that certain pulses were now missing their opposite numbers. As he looked at the map, he realized not everything was being cancelled out anymore after the black hole had formed. Indeed, outside the event horizon, traveling away from the black hole, he found resonances that perfectly matched the shape of thermal radiation flying away into space. Radiation is energy, and energy cannot form from nothing. As the black hole was creating this radiation, the black hole would have to pay the price. Every piece of Hawking radiation would thus coincide with the amount of energy lost in the black hole, which in time would reduce it down to nothing. If it exists, Hawking radiation is kind of like money spontaneously appearing outside of a bank, while inside the bank, the money in the vault vanishes. It's also extremely difficult to prove, as Hawking predicted this radiation would be colder than the background cosmic radiation that fills the universe, and would have a wavelength as long as the black hole's event horizon itself. As some black holes have event horizons the size of solar systems, we have no way of detecting this kind of radiation. We'd only really see it once the universe had gone cold and dead, so there was nothing else to get in the way, which would probably mean we weren't around anymore to do the detecting. However, in spite of the objections to it, the math behind Hawking radiation seems to be sound, and scientists have recently taken steps to proving it in the lab. In the Technion Israel Institute of Technology, researchers If you waited until almost the end of the universe, the black hole may just radiate Hawking radiation until the mass and energy that made up your existence was completely removed from inside the event horizon. Does that count as escaping? That's probably not so appealing to you. Probably best just not to go in. And that's not the only weird thing about black holes. Their existence implies something quite worrying about our own reality. When you're walking on a beach and you make a footprint in the sand, there is no question in your mind that it is your foot that caused the footprint. The order of causality is quite clear here, so much so that it seems laughable to even need to assert it. You made the footprint. The footprint didn't make you. But what if it did? What if I told you that on the cosmological scale, the fundamental relationship between foot and footprint might be a little more blurred than you would intuitively
Ready?
think. And shockingly, due to the nature of black holes and Hawking radiation, there
All
is
right.
some evidence that this might just be the case. But to begin with, we're going to need to look at a principle called relativity. But no,
Careful.
not that
It's a long way down. Yeah, I
linear
see it.
relativity. First described by Galileo Galilei in 1632, the idea of this form of relativity is that there is no difference
Oh, crap!
still and moving at continuous speed. Imagine there are two rooms.
What's that first
one on
step?
a ship
It's a
and another
doozy.
on land.
Yeah.
Both are soundproof and have no windows. Imagine the sea is calm, so there's no rocking at all. The only difference between the two rooms is that one is moving and the other is not. Can you tell the difference between the two from the inside?
Ladder's busted in the middle. We'll
You
make
might
do.
think
Keep
that
heading
you'd
up.
be able to sense movement, but this is not the case. For instance, right now, you are careening through space at 110,000
How
kilometers
you doing back there?
due to
Hell of a
Earth's
view.
movement around the sun. And if you are sitting down at home while watching it, it's likely you would have said you weren't moving at all. In fact, Galileo realized that there was no test that could be done to tell the difference between the two scenarios. He even found that if you dropped a ball in the ship, from your perspective, it would look like it fell straight down, even if, from the perspective of a person on land, it would look like it was falling diagonally. Galileo realized that if you remove all frames of reference, say by being in space, there is no way of telling if a planet is moving towards you or you are moving towards a planet. According to relativity, both are equally valid interpretations. You might have noticed this yourself if you ever looked out of the window on a train just as another train suddenly passed by, quickly overtaking you. Although both trains are going forwards,
Talk
the other
about a
train
high
is going
dive.
faster than yours, and because you no longer have a frame of reference to compare your motion to, it might look as if you are suddenly going backwards. Einstein took this idea further with his equivalence principle. Here he took the idea of two rooms again, but this time he was making an observation about gravity. If you were inside a windowless room floating in the vacuum of space and someone started accelerating your room in the up direction, say by
Trust me and
strapping
follow my
the
lead,
rocket
okay?
to the bottom of it, if the rocket accelerated at just the right speed, then it would feel identical to if you were standing in a room on the surface of Earth. In other words, there is no way to tell the difference between the acceleration caused by gravity and the acceleration caused by a rocket. Assuming you couldn't stop the rocket shaking you with all its rumbling, of course. Both these principles rely on the idea of inertia, that objects do not like to move if simply left on their own, and do not like to stop moving once they have started. Anytime you want a mass to do something different to what it is doing, a new force
Do all
must
of
be
that
applied.
then? Yeah.
Otherwise, it will
Something
remain
like that.
inert. But why would it feel as if you were under the effects of gravity? Or perhaps a better question, why would it feel to us on Earth
Definitely the
as if
high
we
rent
were being
district now.
accelerated
Not
upwards by
residential,
the
though.
effects of a rocket?
I think some kind of
The Earth is
administration.
not expanding
Probably.
in all directions at once.
Maybe Libertalia had a zoning committee.
Surely. While this is true,
knows?
Einstein realized that the two felt similar because they both were the same thing, a form of acceleration. However,
Nothing
there's
up
another
here.
form of acceleration that better explains how gravity works than simply applying a force to an object to push it like a rocket does. Consider this spinning fairground ride. If you have ever been on such a ride, you will know the power of changing
No way
direction
through up here either.
acceleration. When you stand against the wall of the ride, as it gets up to speed, you feel a constant force pressing you against the
It's
wall,
supposed to take
even when
years
the
and
ride
years to
spins
build.
at a constant speed.
Now with
This is
great
because your mass
piles
is
of
trying
money
to move in a straight
comes
line
no
at each point of
responsibility.
the ride, but the curvature of the ride
Restraint,
is forcing you to alter your direction.
Yeah, well, money can't
The
buy
battle
taste.
between your inertia trying not to change what you're doing and the wall trying to alter your direction of travel manifest as the force you feel. And as far as acceleration is concerned, there's not much difference between the Earth beneath you accelerating you up and you trying to accelerate down. Einstein realized that this form of acceleration caused by a curving path, was the best explanation for gravity. He came up with a theory that matter and energy cause a warping in the space around it, Kind of like how a ball might bend the surface of a taut rubber sheet it was placed on.
Jesus.
The larger the mass,
Cannons,
the greater
improvised
the
barricades.
and once
What the hell
space was
happened
curved,
here?
any
Some
object
kind of
that
battle.
traveled through it would be
Rhetorical
deflected
question.
by that curve.
Real question is
In the
who's
words of
fighting who?
physicist John Wheeler,
Why?
space tells matter how to move. Matter tells space how to curve. For small masses, this curve in space would be very slight.
Look like soldiers.
But in dense masses, this curvature could get so great that it would be impossible for an object that got too close to it
It
to
was the
escape it.
colonists versus the
These
soldiers.
are the conditions
If that's
we
the
find
treasury
in
up
the
there.
black hole with its event
Appears
horizon.
someone was trying to make a withdrawal.
So going back to our very
Let's
first
just hope they didn't succeed, right?
If a black hole is the foot, the curvature of space around it is the footprint. It's interesting to see all of this in action and to understand how Einstein came to conclusions which would have been almost universally validated by scientists even 100 years on. But there's nothing particularly weird about any of this so far. Understanding the exact mechanisms behind it doesn't make it any stranger.
Man, this is
Black
impressive.
hole tells space how to curve, and once curved, any object moving near it is told how to move. Nothing here is
Here
outside our
we
expectations.
Or not. You want to give me a hand?
Yeah. The most important thing to bear in mind about it this means
empty.
that it does not appear from the black hole itself, but appears from the air
Rafe?
of space around it. To be clear,
No.
I do not mean beyond the singularity
been
of the
touched
black
in here
hole,
for
but
hundreds of
still
years.
within the black sphere. That's
Well,
hard to define anyway. Space as we know
search
it
for
doesn't
clues?
exist there.
Yeah. Search for
Remember,
clues.
the black ball you see here is simply the demarcation point between inescapable curvature and escapable curvature, the event horizon. I do not even mean right up against the event horizon, although that is sometimes how this theory is portrayed. People sometimes speak of two particles popping into existence right up against the event horizon, with the antimatter particle just inside it, so it falls in, while the normal particle is just outside and so escapes. This is not what is happening. Instead, the region of space this radiation can pop into existence is several times the size of the event horizon.
Fancy
Distance
clothes.
up to billions of kilometers
And a
away.
uniform.
And when the largest black holes
You
we
were a
have
guard here, weren't you?
comfortably fit multiple solar
Nice
systems
job.
side by side inside of their event horizon, the idea that a photon of radiation can pop into existence this distance again outside the event horizon is crazy. It happens even in a place where there is literally nothing
Good
there.
question.
So in short,
if
it is not so much that
Maybe
the
there's no
radiation is
treasure
coming
left.
from the black
You know,
hole
they spin it
directly.
all on
Instead, it is
marble
coming into
floors.
existence
So
from
the
the
colonists
curvature of
find out their money's
space
gone and they
the
get
black
pissed.
hole is
Maybe
created
so.
and can happen quite far away from the black hole itself. But if that is true, then things work completely opposite to what we might expect, as you will see in a moment. Consider what happens in this order. As energy leaves the curvature of space, the curvature lessens because of something known as the conservation of energy. And as this reduction of curvature happens, the black hole
this?
then shrinks. This is crazy. This is like the footprint getting
manifest.
smaller, and so the foot
treasure.
shrinks accordingly. It feels very wrong. Things can't possibly work that way. And yet Einstein hinted that such a thing might indeed be possible. In one of his equations, he stated that the curvature of space-time was proportional to the mass energy of an object. But proportional is not causational. There's no presupposition that one causes the other in this relationship. We are comfortable with the idea of changing mass and so changing curvature, but it works just as well if you go the other way and change the curvature to change the mass. If this is true, then it hints at a universe where mass is simply a projection caused by space curvature. When you shine a light at an object, say your hand, and it makes a shadow on the wall, the shadow is a projection caused by the existence of your hand interacting with the light. Normally in this analogy, you might be forgiven for believing that we are the hand. It is our mass that creates the curvature of space around us. And yet, do we really know
Captain
it
Avery.
doesn't work the other way around? Are we simply projections?
You've certainly seen better days.
Universe being brought into life by something more fundamental going on in the curvature of space-time. And yet, we're going around thinking that we're the thing that's real. We don't really know. Given that all you know is the reality you experience, it would be difficult for you to be able to tell the difference between the two scenarios. But if relativity has taught us anything, it's that if there's no way of telling the difference
Hey,
between
Nathan,
the two
check it out.
situations, then we can't completely dismiss that we're in one and not the other. Either that,
What do you got?
or the two might be more linked than we
The
thought.
battalion money.
Of course,
This is Avery's
obviously,
sigil.
this is all just a theory.
Must
There
have
is
melted
no
down the
hard
gold,
proof
minted
that
his own
Hawking
currency.
radiation is even
So
a
based
real
on
thing.
that, all the
Although there
manifests
have
on the
been some
shelves?
experiments that hint that
Treasure was here. Leaves the bigger question. Where is it now?
Okay, so we know that there was fighting outside.
Yeah. And inside?
What, do you think the colonists stole it?
No.
Joe Rogan
I
Experience.
think they were trying to reclaim what was theirs. Look. There's Avery. 2.
All right, here we go. We're all. So you,
Founders of Libertalia.
someone was telling you.
All marked with the word thief.
Okay, so I
Not murderer, not tyrant.
Thief.
His name's John McPhee.
So by the time the colonists busted in here, treasure was already gone.
Yeah, because these guys had already taken it for themselves.
billionaire friend.
Pirates will be pirates, right?
Loaned his plane
Pirates will be pirates.
to fly those people out of, I think, North Korea. And so from that point on, he was surrounded by these guys. And one of them, this guy.
I know where they moved it.
Which isn't his real name.
What? Where?
I think he's actually named, they name them all after the archangels. So he was like Michael.
Oh,
the other guy Gabriel.
It's a map.
Like,
Right there?
they take on
That's
these.
our treasury.
It's a map of Libertalia.
Right, so follow it to the other side of the island. Right there.
Yeah.
New Devon.
And so he.
Avery was from Devon, England.
Yeah, we got
Sure
to know each
was.
other because of our mutual friend. And I think what happened was.
Seriously large mansions.
Each of them has its own sigil, too.
They were placed on me as
Because
like,
that's
for
where they
surveillance purposes. You know, find out what this Avery guy's about. Maybe.
They say we climb that watchtower, huh?
And they told me right
Get
up
our
front,
bearings.
like, be nice
New
to your
Devon,
surveillance.
here we come.
You know, like don't try to lose us or anything like that. Because I heard stories about how they're surveilling somebody in
Now,
Bolivia.
how do we get up there?
And suddenly some gang attacks their surveillance. They step in and kick the shit out of the gang. And so, so I got to know these guys, and naturally, I'm a writer and filmmaker, and so I of course want to talk to them about stuff. And they immediately started volunteering. Oh yeah, we've learned all these different ways when I became an operator. Blah blah blah. I learned how to kill people without, and I was just making a list now of the 10 ways to kill somebody without leaving a trace. And I was like, well. Just like when I told Quentin about this, he
check
said,
this out.
what are those? I'd like to hear those. Everybody wants to hear those. And so one of the ones that I think is the
Okay,
best
ready?
one is you inject some coffee. Ship coffee into the
Okay, that's step one. Step two.
Later on, they
Raise
do
the
an autopsy.
chandelier.
Discover.
Good idea.
I'm surprised.
Just take the compliment.
Just right into the blood. Coffee can kill you.
Sometimes the simple way is
Like,
the best.
just right into the juggler with a syringe.
Yes.
Oh, the place is
Extracting
looking
whatever
classy.
information you need to get out of them. But he
How
was
much coffee will kill you like that?
A syringe worth?
I don't know. And, is it the Turkish kind or is
Right,
it
right.
Folgers? I
Cuban
don't-
espresso.
Yeah,
Right.
but he was a medic
nice one,
during the war, and he was a medic, and so he was kind of identified as somebody who knew how to kill somebody very easily because what will work.
Yeah.
Because you're a medic, and so I would hear every now and then, I'd kill some guy and some diplomat or something in the Philippines, and I'd hit him with my car, and then I'd look in my rearview mirror and make a medical determination of, is the guy still alive, or is he, I better finish him off and put him in reverse and drive him over again a couple of times and then take off. And he's doing that all the time. All the time they're doing it.
Well, Jamie and I were just talking, and they think they have a photo of the guy who whacked that insurance CEO.
Sorry, Condon.
Yeah,
Baldridge.
I think they
What?
have a
You're
photo.
stepping on Baldridge. Oh.
Well, I would think
Oh,
with
yeah.
the amount of
Time or
cameras.
they picked it up later.
I think there's cameras everywhere
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
part of the problem with someone. And I don't think this guy was a professional. I think this guy, if I had to guess, some guy who got fucked over. Apparently, that company is really bad on denying claims.
34% denial rate.
Up we
something
go.
like
It's
that.
like 16.
Shocked the stairs are intact.
Hey.
Those guys.
I don't think
Jinx
anybody's
us.
gonna like be crying too hard over that guy.
Maybe his family, but that's
Like I
about
said.
It's a dirty, dirty business. The business of insurance is fucking gross. It's gross, and especially healthcare insurance. Just fucking gross.
Well, actually,
seeing this
all
tower?
insurance. I live
Sure
in
am.
California, and all of a sudden, because I live adjacent to any kind of open space, like nobody will insure my house because of fire.
Right.
And so suddenly, it's like I have a house that's uninsurable, and it's not just me; it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's chaos.
Yeah. I have a
chaos.
friend who's trying to sell a house in California, and it turned out it was $125,000 a year just to get fire insurance.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's fucking nuts.
It's insane.
Yeah, but I was evacuated 3 times when I lived there. I used to live in Bell Canyon, and it was rough. I mean,
I've been really lucky. I'm almost afraid to say
Sam?
it, all right, 'cause I've been living in
All right, just making sure you haven't plummeted to your death.
Any of the fire stuff happens, never happened around here.
it is just luck. Yeah.
I mean,
Sure is excited.
the benefit of your place is you're
Need a
at least
lift?
in a helicopter accessible.
Well,
like,
that is
they're
true.
just going to dump all that fire retardant right on top of you.
Come on,
I literally
ready?
am at the top of the hill on a bunch of rock.
Yeah.
All right, so if the whole
Oh,
fucking
that's
place
nice.
turns into an inferno, I'm still fucked.
And I think that place has probably been there a while. It's probably withstood all sorts of.
Come on. Fire guy for the fire department. He said it's just going to be a matter of time. There's going to be one day where a fire hits LA, and the wind is the right way, and we're not going to be able to stop it. It's just going to burn right through to the ocean. He goes, it's just a matter of time. We all know it.
Quite the crow's nest, huh?
What the fuck?
There it is.
I go, the whole city? He goes, the whole city.
Just on the other side of the
He
river.
goes, when those big fires get going, there's not a damn thing.
How do you say we go?
What happened in Malibu? a few
Rob
years
from the
back?
rich, huh?
Like those are. I always thought Malibu, those rich people.
Well,
they're
that
gonna
was the
protect them.
closest. Yeah,
Maui.
Hey, is there a path down there?
93. That actually happened while we were shooting Pulp Fiction.
Really?
Yeah, well, there was a big
Malibu
Malibu
fire.
fire. The big
Yeah.
Malibu fire happened while we were shooting
How
Pulp
long you
Fiction.
think it'll take us to get to New
We
York?
actually set up a TV
couple
on the
hours.
set because
Depends on
Bruce
what
Willis.
or who we bump into along the Shit! You all right? Get up, don't they? Down here! Coming! Where are you? Down here! Come on! No!
But now they put all those houses.
Where are you? Down here! Come on! Jesus, that was close. Something tells me they've had enough of us. Really? What gives you that idea? Down here! Wait! Don't wait! Just go! Nathan! Nathan! Get up, brother. We gotta go. We gotta go. Now! Can't just talk about it.
Developed by board-certified nutritionists to provide all the nutrients to your dog.
Sarah! Come on, up here! Climb up the rope!
To this strict standard.
Great!
Precise
Thanks. Oh, this is nuts! Run!
No one, dog or human, should be eating highly processed. Keep running! Don't stop! Farmer's Dog today. You can get 50% off your first box of fresh. Farmersdog.com/Rogan.
your dice no matter what.
All right, let's try this again. Fear Factor, we had to stop the set early because the fire was so bad. This was like 2003 or something like 4. And driving home, it took me 55 minutes on the 5 to get home, and the entire time the right side of the highway was on fire for 55 minutes. Everything like.
Okay, wait.
The last time was the last time.
Hey,
It was
Nadine.
like,
Great to
you know,
see
the
you.
last big.
Okay, mango.
I came home.
What's
from
you
the
on
house
about?
at like 1 o'clock in the
That's
morning.
my safe word.
And my wife and I are looking out the window, and the fire
Oh,
is
you're always
like
this
maybe
clever.
500 or 600 yards away, and it's
moments.
coming over the hill. And we were
Yes.
looking at each other. I said, "Let's just get the fuck."
You and your
out of
brother
here.
have proven yourselves the more
Let's
capable.
just get out of here now.
Treasure hunters
Just-
on the
So we
island.
grabbed the kids, got a laptop.
Shame we're not on the
took
same
some clothes.
side.
I didn't even have underwear. I said we could just buy
Still
stuff.
time.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
You
Trust
know?
a trick.
Who cares?
If you have your life.
Yeah.
I'm always.
I'm not falling for that again.
Hey, just let's talk. Okay, that was
That's me. Like, my family went away, and I was like, well, they're going to close it out so we can't get back in. I'm just going to hang out here until I know that it's. And,
After everything, you think I'm just going to let you walk away?
Ran down to the fire department to see, you know, like,
That'd
hey
be the
guys,
wise thing to
it's
do.
coming. I can see it from my house. And they're all there, like, hanging out.
come on,
eating
Nadine,
sandwiches,
really?
and, like, not even worried
You know
about
you're
it.
a
They
badass
kinda
and all,
looked over at it.
There's 2 of us.
It's okay. It'll be fine.
I don't think my men are on their way here right now.
Blasé about fire.
All I have to do is buy some time.
By the way, my Spec Ops friend.
As if I don't finish it
he's
myself.
like, fuck those firemen, man. Fuck them. They can-
I'm tired of this island. I'm tired of your brother. And I'm tired of you.
I know you don't.
Get out.
We just talk about this.
I don't think so.
It's like they all have these huge pensions, and everybody thinks they're just doing their job.
The firemen are very comfortable with fire. The people are very comfortable with people dying. Dying because of them. Exactly. They just get real. Blasé about murder.
It's not murder if it's sanctioned by your own country.
What's this? Nadine!
Pretty decent property taxes. So you get there's a little vig that comes with it. You know, hours during
You're fast.
But
you're not that
during
fast.
election. You just go to the
Forget about her.
local.
Come on, we gotta
elementary
get
school
out of
in
here
about
before they.
5 minutes. So when it comes to,
Whoa. Everybody just calm down, okay?
Well, this is interesting. Nate? Samuel?
Put your guns down! All of you!
No.
Rafe, this guy's on edge.
Oh, don't worry about him, Nadine. These guys don't kill anyone in cold blood. It's just not their style.
You wanted to bet her life on that?
Go ahead, then. Shoot her.
Sam.
I die, you both die.
So be it.
Not another step!
I mean, like this?
Sam, put the gun down.
I warned you.
Do it! It's done! Hold your fire! Don't shoot!
Put it down.
It's done. Okay? It's done.
Don't worry, Nadine. It's not their style.
I say, I didn't think he had it in him. Samuel. You okay? I guess you knew this moment was coming, huh?
Hey! Come on, man. You already got us. Take it easy. Come on now, you're a businessman. Let's just work out a deal.
Oh, a deal. Oh, yeah. Love to hear what you have in mind. Oh, you can go ahead. I'm listening.
You want to find Avery's treasure?
We'll help you find it.
And in exchange, I let you live?
Yeah. That and a small cut.
The gauchos on this guy.
Just enough to get him his freedom, okay?
His freedom?
Nathan. Yeah. He did hard time. Our time. And the guy who broke him out, Hector Alcazar, he owes him a lot of money.
Whoa, what the hell are you talking about, Nate? Hector Alcazar died in a shootout in Argentina like 6 months ago. I'm the one that got Samuel out. Oh. Wow. What did he tell you? Sam, what kind of story did you cook up? Alcazar? Really? You lied? You lied to your baby brother?
We're wasting time.
Just a second. Thing is, Nate, I never stopped looking for Avery's treasure. I just kept running into these dead ends. And then I hear that our dear old Samuel Drake, an authority on Avery, is alive and somewhat well. There was no breakout. I bribed the prison warden, and your brother, he just waltzed right out the front gate. He spent the last 2 years tracking down a second St. Dismas cross. You know what? He did it all with me.
Oh.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, that's bullshit.
Oh. Sam, care to refute?
Nate. Oh, Sam. Jesus, no.
Listen, Avery's treasure was ours. It was always ours.
I left my light for you.
Hey, look, Nate, if it's any consolation, he duped me too. He pulled a Houdini on me, he brought you and that old man back into the mix, and I cannot lie, Sam, that really pissed me off. But, all behind us now.
You don't deserve it.
You do? Last I checked, we're all a bunch of thieves digging around where we shouldn't.
Rafe,
What?
one way or another, end it, or I will.
Well, you heard the lady.
Hey, you missed one clue, and you can kiss that treasure goodbye. You said it yourself, keep running into dead ends. Why don't you face it, Rafe? You need us.
No, you're right. You're half right. I just need Sam.
Wait, now you're making a mistake.
Rafe,
You
don't listen!
Oh my God. Nate. Hey, Nate!
There it is.
Who the hell lives here anyway?
No idea. But this is definitely the address. Been scoping the place out for the past few days. No one's home. And here we are.
Whoa. This place is humongous. Where do we even start?
We start by finding a way in. And then we can take the grand tour.